Leo, have you ever felt like you know 1,000 grammar rules, but you still hesitate to order a coffee or talk to your boss?
Oh, absolutely, Mia. That awful moment when your brain freezes up.
Exactly. It's like, why is the vocabulary there in my head, but the words just won't come out when I need them most?
It's the ultimate learning trap, right? You feel almost perfect when you're writing, but speaking is a whole different world.
It is. That freezing moment is what we want to tackle today. We want to celebrate the journey you've already taken.
Because seriously, if you can understand this sentence right now, you are probably a lot more fluent than you think you are.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mia.
And I'm Leo.
Welcome to the English Blend.
Today, we are talking about fluency, about reflecting on your language journey and how to stop chasing that impossible idea of perfect English.
Right. The episode is literally titled, Reflecting on Your Journey, You're Fluent Now. That's the mindset we want you to adopt.
Exactly. So grab your coffee or tea, maybe a notebook, and let's get started.
Okay, Leo, let's start with the basics because the word fluency is often misunderstood.
Totally. When people hear fluent, they picture a native speaker or maybe a professor, someone who never makes a single mistake.
Yes, and that idea is actually quite damaging to the learning process, you know? It sets an unrealistic standard.
Because if fluency means zero mistakes, then honestly, even native speakers aren't truly fluent. We make errors all the time.
We do. We backtrack, we use filler words, we mess up verb tenses when we're tired. It's normal, right?
So let's define it for our listeners in a helpful way. What is practical fluency?
Practical fluency, especially for A2 to B2 learners, means communication.
It means being able to successfully exchange information.
You can express your thoughts, you can understand the main idea of what the other person is saying.
And importantly, you can maintain the conversation without massive, awkward pauses that completely break the flow.
Exactly. The flow is key. It's about the speed and ease with which you speak, not the grammatical perfection of every single sentence.
Think of it this way. Fluency is like driving a car smoothly. You might take a wrong turn sometimes. That's a grammar mistake.
But you still get to your destination quickly and efficiently, and the person in the car with you understands where you are going.
That's the goal, getting the message across.
Now, this brings us to the difference between fluency and accuracy. These are two separate things, you know?
They really are. Accuracy is about being correct. Perfect grammar, perfect pronunciation, perfect vocabulary choices.
And fluency is about being fast, smooth, and easily understood.
A lot of learners get stuck because they focus 99% on accuracy. They check every rule in their head before they say a sentence.
That checking process, that internal editor, is the ultimate killer of fluency. It creates those long pauses we mentioned.
You start calculating the past perfect tense, and by the time you figure it out, the topic of conversation has changed 5 times.
It's true. Let's say you're talking about a movie you saw yesterday.
Your brain says, okay, movie yesterday, so past simple.
But then you think, wait, was I talking about the actor before he did the movie? Maybe I need the past perfect continuous.
And by the time you are deciding between had gone and went, the person you were talking to has already walked away.
Yeah, exactly. So we need to shift the priority. When you're having a real conversation, the priority must be fluency.
When you are taking a test, the priority is accuracy. When you are living your life, the priority is fluency.
You know, I once read an analogy that really helped me understand this.
Go on.
Think of it like a bicycle. Accuracy is the brakes, fluency is the pedals.
Oh, I like that.
You need the brakes, the grammar, to stay safe and steer correctly. But if you only press the brakes, you never move forward.
You have to keep pedaling. You have to generate the momentum and accept that sometimes you might wobble a little bit.
And the wobble is fine. People will understand the wobble. They won't understand total silence.
So that brings us to the big topic. Why does focusing too much on complex grammar rules actually block fluency?
It's mental overload. Your working memory has a limited capacity, right?
Absolutely. And if you force your brain to consciously recall a specific rule, like when exactly to use might, may, or could, while also listening and formulating an answer, you crash the system. It's too much simultaneous processing.
Your brain is trying to be a database manager and a fast talker at the same time. It can't do both efficiently.
The key is that grammar should become automatic. You shouldn't have to think about it consciously.
And how does grammar become automatic? Not by studying more rule books.
No, it becomes automatic through massive, meaningful input, listening and reading a lot.
When you listen to native speakers, or even to us, you are hearing the patterns hundreds of times.
And eventually, your brain starts to recognize the patterns and reproduce them without needing to look up the rule in the back of your mind.
It's about feeling the language, not just knowing the formulas.
It's almost like muscle memory, but for your mouth and your ears.
Let's elaborate on this idea of input and automaticity a little bit more, because this is crucial for our learners who feel stuck at the B1 level.
Right, when you learned your first language, nobody gave you a grammar textbook when you were 2 years old.
No way! You just heard sounds. You copied chunks, and you learned the function before you learned the name of the function.
We learned, for example, I want more milk. That's a whole chunk. We didn't learn subject plus verb plus comparative adjective plus noun. We just knew that structure meant, please give me this thing again.
And then, later, maybe in school, they gave the structure and name, the subject and the verb, but you were already using it correctly.
That's the power of input. When you try to force the formal rules first, you create a roadblock in your mouth.
You know, it reminds me of a short story, kind of a cultural note, about communication when traveling.
Tell me.
So I was traveling in a country where I spoke maybe 5 words of the local language. I needed to find a very specific type of medicine at a pharmacy.
A stressful situation, I imagine.
Extremely stressful. I tried to use a perfect sentence I found on Google Translate. The pharmacist looked confused.
Classic travel moment.
Then I gave up on perfection. I just pulled out my phone, showed a picture of the medicine, pointed to my head, and made a dramatic, sad face.
Laughs. The universal language of headache.
Exactly! Within 5 seconds, she understood. She brought me the medicine, and we both had a laugh.
And what's the lesson there for our English learners?
The lesson is that the goal wasn't to impress her with my vocabulary or my perfect grammar in her language. The goal was to solve my immediate problem.
Get the point across. That's the definition of successful communication. Language focus. Get your point across.
Yes, and that's a great phrase right there. If you can get your point across, you are fluent enough.
Let's break that phrase down for our listeners. To get your point across.
It means to successfully communicate your idea or your message to the listener, even if you had to use simple words or draw a picture.
For example, I didn't use perfect grammar, but I managed to get my point across to the waiter that I needed decaf coffee.
Or, the presentation was tough, but I felt I got my main points across to the management.
It emphasizes the result, the understanding, over the method, the grammar.
We need more learners celebrating when they get their point across, instead of immediately criticizing themselves for a dropped S at the end of a third-person singular verb.
100%. Stop grading yourself harshly on the details when the overall mission was accomplished.
So, how do we train ourselves to be fluent, to just speak, instead of constantly self-correcting?
This is where we transition into the practical tips section. These steps are designed to turn off that internal editor.
Myth number 1, embrace massive listening and reading.
We touched on this, but let's emphasize the massive part. You need volume.
Think of it like this. Your brain is a computer, and the English language is the software. You need to install the software completely before you try to write complex code.
And how do you install it? By consuming content that is just challenging enough, maybe 70 to 80% understandable, for hours and hours.
Watch the YouTube shows, listen to podcasts, read articles about things you genuinely care about.
Don't just read textbooks. Read about football, fashion, history, cooking, whatever makes you curious.
When you listen passively, your brain is doing the hard work without you realizing it. It's absorbing the rhythm and the flow of natural speech.
And it's collecting those natural language chunks. This is tip number 2.
Chunks are groups of words that native speakers use together automatically without assembling them piece by piece.
Things like, by the way, just kidding, I see what you mean, or long story short.
If you learn long story short as one unit, you don't have to think adjective plus noun plus adjective. You just grab the phrase and insert it.
It speeds up your speaking immediately because you aren't constructing sentences. You are slotting in pre-made blocks.
Think of building a house. Do you want to shape every single brick from scratch?
No, you want to use bricks that are already formed and ready to connect. Chunks are those pre-formed bricks.
So when you listen, start isolating those chunks. Write them down. Notice how they function.
You might hear the chunk, I'm looking forward to, hundreds of times.
Then, when you need to use it, you don't think about the tricky grammar of to plus the ing form. You just use the whole chunk.
It takes away the fear of grammar in real time.
Let's move to tip number 3, and this one is about pushing yourself when you speak. We call it the 3-second rule.
This is a powerful technique for forcing fluency over accuracy.
When someone asks you a question, you have 3 seconds to start responding. 1, 2, 3. Speak. No matter how messy the answer is, you must start talking within 3 seconds.
No matter how messy the answer is, you must start talking within 3 seconds.
If you allow yourself 10 or 15 seconds, your internal editor wakes up, drinks its coffee, and starts marking your essay before you've written it.
It gets complicated quickly. The 3 seconds forces you to use the language that is immediately accessible in your memory.
It forces you to prioritize flow. It means using a simpler word that you know perfectly rather than waiting for a complex word that might be wrong.
And what if you make a mistake under the 3-second rule?
Who cares? You got the point across. And you can always self-correct later if necessary, but the most important thing is keeping the conversation moving.
You know, for many learners, making a mistake feels like the end of the world.
Perfect timing for our next language focus phrase. It's not the end of the world.
This phrase is incredibly useful in English to minimize a problem.
We use it when something bad happens, but it's not truly catastrophic. It's just a minor setback.
For example, I forgot my umbrella, and now I'm wet. Oh well, it's not the end of the world.
Or, I totally messed up the pronunciation of that word in the meeting, but it's not the end of the world. They still understood me.
Using this phrase internally helps shift your mindset away from perfectionism. Your error is just a small puddle, not an ocean of failure.
Let's look at a 4th practical tip. Tip number 4, stop translating in your head.
When someone asks you a question, you have 3 seconds to start responding.
1, 2, 3. Speak. No matter how messy the answer is, you must start talking within 3 seconds.
If you allow yourself 10 or 15 seconds, your internal editor wakes up, drinks its coffee, and starts marking your essay before you've written it.
It gets complicated quickly. The 3 seconds forces you to use the language that is immediately accessible in your memory.
It forces you to prioritize flow. It means using a simpler word that you know perfectly rather than waiting for a complex word that might be wrong.
And what if you make a mistake under the 3-second rule?
Who cares? You got the point across. And you can always self-correct later if necessary. But the most important thing is keeping the conversation moving.
You know, for many learners, making a mistake feels like the end of the world.
Perfect timing for our next language focus phrase. It's not the end of the world. Language focus. Not the end of the world.
This phrase is incredibly useful in English to minimize a problem.
We use it when something bad happens, but it's not truly catastrophic. It's just a minor setback.
For example, I forgot my umbrella, and now I'm wet. Oh well, it's not the end of the world.
Or, I totally messed up the pronunciation of that word in the meeting, But it's not the end of the world. They still understood me.
Using this phrase internally helps shift your mindset away from perfectionism. Your error is just a small puddle, not an ocean of failure.
Let's look at a fourth practical tip. Tip number 4. Stop translating in your head. Practical tip 4.
This is the source of so many fluency problems, Mia. The learner hears English, translates it into their native language, formulates the perfect response in their native language, and then translates that perfect response back into English.
That process takes at least 15 seconds, which completely destroys the 3-second rule.
We need to learn to think in English.
How do we do that?
We force ourselves into simple English descriptions.
Say something like, that big cold box where we keep food.
Yes, the description is fluent, even if the specific noun is missing. Again, you got your point across.
You are training your brain to bypass the translation middleman.
And the more you practice tip 1, the easier this becomes because the English words and concepts start linking directly to the objects, not through your first language.
Now, let's talk about a situation that often makes learners quit. It's when they feel like they are progressing and then suddenly, nothing.
You mean they hit a wall? That's our third language focus phrase.
Yes, to hit a wall means to reach a point where you cannot make any further progress, or where progress becomes suddenly very difficult.
It's a very common experience in English learning, usually around the B1, B2 intermediate plateau.
You feel like you know a lot, but you can't jump to the next level, right? You've hit a metaphorical wall.
For example, I studied vocabulary every day for 6 months, but lately I feel like I've hit a wall.
Or we were making good progress on the project, but we suddenly hit a wall when we ran out of funding.
When you hit a wall in language learning, it's not a sign that you should quit. It's a sign that you need to change your approach.
It's a sign that your brain has finished installing the basic operating system, and now it needs an upgrade, which is harder work.
This leads us perfectly to tip number 5. Focus on production quality, not quantity.
When you feel stuck, when you hit a wall, stop trying to learn 100 new words a day. Instead, focus on taking the 2,000 words you already know and using them in 1,000 different unique ways.
Practice telling the same story to 5 different people. Each time, try to vary the structure or deliberately use one new idiom or one new adverb. You are solidifying the existing knowledge, turning passive understanding into active, ready-to-use speech.
This is where accuracy can be useful again, but in a controlled way. Not during conversation, but during review.
For example, record yourself speaking for 2 minutes, talking about your day, then listen back.
Don't listen to criticize your accent. Listen to find maybe 1 or 2 grammar points you can improve next time.
If you notice you keep saying I goes instead of I go, isolate that one error. Work on that one error until it's automatic. Don't try to fix every error at once. That leads back to mental overload. Fix one thing, then move to the next.
So, let's quickly review those powerful phrases and tips we discussed today, Mia.
Absolutely. We started by emphasizing that fluency is communication, not perfection.
We defined fluency as flow and ease, while accuracy is correctness. We agreed that in real life, flow wins.
The fear of grammar blocks fluency because it forces conscious processing and causes the 3-second pause to become 15 seconds.
Our 3 key phrases for a fluent mindset were:
1. To get your point across. Successfully communicate your message.
2. It's not the end of the world. Minimize your errors. They are small steps back, not total failure.
3. To hit a wall. That plateau of difficulty which signals you need to change your learning strategy.
And our practical tips for building that essential fluency muscle were:
Tip 1. Embrace massive listening and reading to install the language software.
Tip 2, focus on learning and using natural language chunks to speak faster and more automatically.
Tip 3, the 3-second rule to force yourself to start speaking immediately, prioritizing flow.
Tip 4, stop translating in your head and use simple English descriptions instead.
And tip 5, when you hit a wall, focus on production quality, taking the words you know and using them creatively.
The journey to fluency is long, but if you are understanding this conversation right now, you have already traveled a huge distance.
Don't minimize that progress. Every time you successfully communicate in English, whether at work, a cafe, or just talking to yourself, you are fluent in that moment.
Celebrate those small victories. You are already there. You are communicating.
Keep practicing, keep listening, and keep using those chunks.
We hope these insights help you turn off that internal grammar editor and just enjoy the conversation.
That was a great talk.
Yes, thank you for listening. We'll be back next time to talk about something equally exciting. Maybe how to use phrasal verbs without crying.
Laughs. That sounds like a tough but necessary topic.
See you in the next episode of The English Blend.
Bye for now.